Hey everyone, my name is Brennan. Hope your day's been going good. And today, we're gonna talk about plants. Why there's sudden interest in these little green things, you may be wondering. Well, let me tell you, I've been getting these weird letters in the mail lately, and just like anyone else would be, I was confused. What the f*** is Urs, and why do they want my money? So I ignored them. Well, apparently that was a bad idea, because they came into my home the other day and confiscated my GameCube and part of my collection, which means I need a way to get them back! I thought of just the idea though. Maybe if I make enough money, I'll be able to buy them back from Mr. Urs. So, as a way to make that money, I'm going to be doing community service gardening. Thing is, I don't know how to garden. That's why I've decided to resort to an old favorite game of mine to teach me how. Which game is it? Pikmin released in Japan on October 26, 2001 for the Nintendo GameCube, with a release date in North America on December 2nd of that same year. Funnily enough, Pikmin actually released the day before Smash Melee came out in the US. Gee, I wonder which one sold more.
You see a wild Pikmin in its natural environment. These strange creatures become attached to whoever pulls them from the ground.
Or that's not to downplay the quality of Pikmin though. In fact, Pikmin was one of the more unique game concepts that Nintendo created, coming from the mind of Shigeru Miyamoto himself and being one of, if not the last game franchise Miyamoto played a big part in creating.
Don't attack my eye!
Despite the game having such a badly timed release date, at least in the US, the game actually sold fairly well, selling 680,000 copies in the US and 1.6 million worldwide. A new Play Controls version of the game was also released on the Wii in 2008 for Japan and 2009 for everywhere else. Just a heads up, this will be the version of the game you'll be seeing throughout the video, mainly just because it's easier to capture gameplay footage for. Now, before I dive into what Pikmin itself is, I first want to talk about its surprisingly interesting and weird development history. There were two main things that led to the development of Pikmin. The first of these is probably the most well known of the two, that being the infamous Mario 128 demo from Space World 2000. This small tech demo was 128 models of Mario running around, picking up blocks, and then moving them around a small space. This was used to show off the technical capabilities of the GameCube, at that time known by its codename Delphino. This demo also displayed the ability for a large amount of AI to work independently on different tasks, leading to the idea of Pikmin. The second, less known inspiration for Pikmin was in the form of a scrapped game called Adam and Eve. I f***ing knew it! In an interview with Miyamoto, it was revealed that the game was supposed to be about the player watching the development of two human beings. This idea was found to be too uninteractive though, leading to it eventually being scrapped and building the foundation for what Pikmin would be. That leads us to 2001, the game currently. So, let's finally answer that question you've been asking. What the is a Pikmin? Well, let's just take our disc, put it in, and find out. Oh, that's right, Urs took my GameCube. Give me a minute. I'm in debt now, but never mind that. Let's finally answer that question you've been asking. What the is a Pikmin? Well, let's put in the disc, find out. The game opens up on an alien explorer named Olimar, who's flying through space when suddenly he's hit by an asteroid, loses the majority of his ship's parts, is sent hurtling toward a nearby planet, crash lands, miraculously survives, and when he comes to, he discovers that he only has 30 days left of air in reserve before he inevitably dies. Oh, okay! Welcome to the Impact Site, your one-stop shop to all things crash landing related. Your hopelessly broken ship, unfamiliar surroundings, lack of air and confidence, and this thing. Is it wise to walk up to random red things erecting from the ground? Probably not, but what does Olimar have to lose? His ship? That thing's already totaled, not much we can do at this point. Once Olimar walks up to it, it pops out of the ground and sprouts what looks to be a seed. Olimar decides to name this strange thing an onion because it looks like one. Yeah, it checks out. Olimar then plucks the seed out of the ground, revealing a plant-like creature called a Pikmin, which will be the first of many to come during this journey to fix our ship. Why are they called Pikmin? Well, Olimar named them Pikmin because they looked like his favorite brand of carrot? Yeah, it checks out. From here, we can use our single Pikmin to slowly build an army of others just like them. By collecting these flowers called pellet posies and bringing them back to the onion, more sprouts are created. We pluck them out of the ground and grow in numbers. The more Pikmin we grow, the more options as for what we can do open up to us. Here it starts with the pellet posies, then moving to a bigger one, then being able to push this box opening up a new area, and finally having enough to carry back our first ship part. Throughout the game, you'll encounter 3 total Pikmin types with their own unique sets of skills different from the other. The first being reds, who are fire resistant. The second are yellows, who can be thrown higher and have the ability to pick up an item called a bomb rock, which can be used to break down walls and be thrown at enemies. The final type you'll find are blues, who have the ability to travel through water without drowning. Using the combined abilities of all 3 types, you'll be able to accomplish different tasks and solve puzzles to help progress forward. Our main goal in the game is to collect enough ship parts for our ship, the Dolphin, to become fully operational again so that we can leave the planet and return home. Oh, and 2 fun facts real quick. The Dolphin is actually named after the GameCube's codename, and another one is regarding Olimar's name, as it's actually an anagram for Mario in Japanese. Okay, back to the game now. So, our first day ends, we fly into the atmosphere with a newfound hope for survival, restoring our ship, and returning home. Day 2! All of my newborn Pikmin children are immediately swallowed whole by a predator and I'm forced to restart the day. Hold on, there's actually something super important I forgot to mention. The day system. One of the most unique and interesting parts about the Pikmin franchise is its day system. Now, if you recall how I mentioned before that our goal is to collect their ship parts, there's actually a bit more to that than I originally mentioned. In total, there are 30 parts to collect for your ship, with 5 of them being optional. However, Olimar only has 30 days left of air, meaning there are also only 30 in-game days for you to collect these parts, with each in-game day taking around 15 minutes long. Throughout the day, you'll notice a sun meter going across your screen that will show you how much time you have left until sundown. Once it becomes nighttime, nocturnal predators on the planet will come, forcing you to fly into the atmosphere for the night to seek shelter. I know a lot of people might be turned off by this idea of an in-game time limit, especially with one like this that has the possibility of you losing by the end of a playthrough. However, I actually think the way it's integrated into the game works really well and makes stress fun. There's always the thought looming overhead that if you aren't productive enough by the end of the 30 days, Olimar will, well, croak. Because of this, you have to try and get as much done as possible during a day so that you're confident that you'll be able to collect enough parts to survive. The game can be stressful when you're racing the clock, but it makes collecting multiple parts in a day feel really rewarding. The way the game is set up, if you collect at least 1 ship part per day, you should be fine. But collecting 2, 3, or even 4 parts in a single day feels really good to pull off. And in the event that something goes horribly wrong and you cause mass genocide among your troops, you could always just restart the day. But do I look like a p*** to you?
The answer is yes.
I would never do something like that.
I would.
I'm too much of a gamer.
That is false.
Pikmin is an RTS, or real-time strategy, style game, which means multitasking and planning ahead plays a big part in your success. Clearing paths of enemies, building bridges, growing your army, focusing on ship parts. You are the one that comes up with your own strategies and way of going about things during the game. You can utilize each of the Pikmin's specialties to help you as well. Use yellows with bomb rocks to open up a shortcut to your base, travel across a body of water with blues so you can build a bridge from the other side, or use reds to fight off a horde of fire-breathing grubs.
I don't think I'm cut out for gardening.
But let's actually take a step back for a second, because I want to walk you through the day-by-day of Pikmin. You start off by first selecting one of the 5 areas on the map. Each of these areas are unlocked depending on how many ship parts you've collected. The more parts you collect, the more areas you can explore. The amount of parts you've collected and how many are left to be collected are also displayed on the map. Let me just quickly run through the areas in the game though, and then we'll continue the day-by-day afterwards. The first area of the game is the impact site, which serves as the tutorial area as well as a safe haven of sorts for you to build your Pikmin population in the event that they're all massacred by a gargantuan spider. The second area you unlock is the Forest of Hope. This area helps with introducing the player to some of the beginning and staple enemies of the game, like the Bulbor. This area also serves to introduce the player to yellow Pikmin. The area also begins to inform the player of the game's open nature, their ability to take multiple paths, and their ability to create their own strategies for how they want to tackle the day. The next area you'll have access to is the Forest Navel. This area is where the game's difficulty begins to ramp up. The first half of the stage is split up into multiple layers with several bomb rock walls in your way. Breaking these can create shortcuts back to your base, but could also be time consuming to get rid of if you're not careful. The second half is a flatter area, along with a dark mushroom-filled area and a large body of water at the end. This level also contains such things as Arachnophobia, Blue Pikmin, Loaf, and Satan. The The fourth area you explore in the game is the Distant Spring. This area has by far the most complex puzzles, the most tough enemies, and the most water. And if it has the most water, it also means it has the most of these bitches. I'll get to you later! The Distant Spring tests your ability to maneuver the Pikmin, fight with them, and use them in clever ways to succeed. One of the most clever puzzles from the game is also in this area. It involves you throwing one Pikmin type into a flower called a Candy Pop Bud, which changes your Pikmin's color to that of the flower. It's really memorable because you have to throw in your blues, change them to yellow, and then change them back to blue to collect a part. It's also really memorable because I realized during this playthrough that you can cheese it, and I will not be doing it the normal way anymore. The final area in the game just so happens to have the fitting name of the Final Trial. This level only unlocks once you've collected 29 parts, and is home to the game's final boss. We'll touch on this area a little bit more later, but for now, let's get back to the day by day. That's what I just said! Once you've chosen the area you're going to, your ship and the Pikmin's onions touch down at your base, and the day begins. Once the day starts, I usually look at the map and plan out what I'm gonna do. Then, when I have everything figured out, I pick up my Pikmin accordingly and go out into the land of mushroom bears and friendly fire. Battling enemies, collecting parts, and color blindness ensues until the night comes and the day ends. At the end of each day, a little cutscene plays, showing Olimar and the Pikmin taking off. As you leave the ground, enemies come into your base as night falls, just barely escaping them. However, there's one thing that I didn't mention regarding the Pikmin. If you don't have all of your Pikmin rounded up with you at the end of the day, or they aren't at the home base, lost Pikmin will end up being killed at the end of the day. During that end of day cutscene, if you had any lost Pikmin, they'll appear in the cutscene being eaten or attacked by creatures. Truly heartbreaking. As the dolphin and onions fly into the atmosphere in the background, a captain's log written by Olimar will appear on screen. These logs range anywhere from him talking about the events that occurred during the day to him bringing up his life back on his home planet of Hocotate. Olimar even discusses his life as a father and a husband. Yeah, that's right, Olimar has a family to get back to once he repairs his ship. In my opinion, Olimar is probably one of the better main characters from a Nintendo game because of just how fleshed out he is. Unlike these other Nintendo mascots like... And fire! Olimar actually gets a voice of his own throughout the game. We get to hear his thoughts on various things during the captain's log at night, as well as giving a brief description of each of the ship's parts as they're collected. These range from fun little explanations to heartfelt messages about his kids and how they're doing. Getting to know the character of Olimar on a level like this also makes the player really want to succeed, because if you can't collect all of the ship parts, Olimar won't get to see his family again and he'll, you know, that. Olimar's character also goes to show just how much care and attention to detail went into this game. Each of the Pikmin types each have their own unique function for completing tasks, each of the game's areas are distinct from one another and have their own unique and detailed elements, things I've already touched on. Other than those, enemies and bosses are also extremely well designed. The game starts you off with simpler enemies so you can get used to using Pikmin in battle. As the game progresses though, the enemies become more complex. Playing tug of war with bread, a fungus that turns my troops against me, I wonder why they'd be mad, and the Hindenburg, just a couple. Boss fights are also integrated smoothly into normal gameplay. There are no cutscenes, no big arenas, they're just kinda there as part of the environment, which fits the game's explorative nature. There are also a couple optional bosses as well. The Gulix and Mamuta are two enemies who appear at the landing site on certain days. The first boss is the Mamuta, who appears on even-numbered days starting on day 8. The Mamuta is a rock creature that will mercilessly beat your Pikmin into the ground, and then once it's finished, will go back to aimlessly wandering since its whole life revolves around 1. Wandering, and 2. Senselessly beating plants. Oh, gee, what a coincidence! Those are two things that I'm also really good at. Me and the Mamuta have a lot in common. The other boss only appears on odd-numbered days starting day 9. This boss's name is the Gulix. It's a blob, and that's, yeah, that's about it. There's one other optional boss that spawns from this egg in the Distant Spring. Hit the egg a couple times and you spawn the Smoky Prog, a creature that's frothing death from every single pore of its body. If a Pikmin touches this smoke trail, the Pikmin will instantly die. The Smoky Prog is also very different from other enemies in the fact that instead of attacking Pikmin near it, it will instead target the source of the Pikmin, the onion. The Smoky Prog will go underneath the onion and yell. This yell will cause all of the Pikmin around it to be plucked so that it can run them over with its smoke trail. Needless to say, the Smoky Prog is one of the more terrifying enemies in the game. As a reward for killing the Smoky Prog though, it drops a small pearl-like object. Bringing this back to an onion will create 100 Pikmin of that type. High risk, high reward. Not all of the enemies in Pikmin are well designed though. This is the Wollywog. It belongs to the water, and to the water it shall stay. These little water gremlins are the most annoying and time-consuming thing in the game. Wollywogs will try to jump into the air and slam back down to flatten your Pikmin. If your Pikmin are hit, they'll be killed immediately, and this thing has a pretty decent kill radius. Your only chance of killing it is during the few seconds that it's grounded. Even then, once it goes into the air and slams down again, it scatters the Pikmin that were on top of it, making them all more vulnerable to being crushed. Doing this takes a while and requires you to devote all of your attention to fighting the Wollywog. I can't stand them! Don't even get me started about fighting them with other enemies around, or god forbid more Wollywogs appear. How about instead of hopping on my Pikmin, you go hop off the edge of the Forest Navel, you clod? But now's not the time to rant. We've gone through the majority of what Pikmin is. Now, it's time for one last test. One last battle. We've collected 29 of 30 parts with only one left. We have to enter the final trial.
Listen up, everyone. We fought long and hard. We've stared death in the eyes. We've seen our fellow Piks fall on the field of battle. But we will not let their deaths be in vain. We will not let our efforts and toil be for naught. Today, we will stare the enemy's leader in the face and show them who the new champions of this planet are. Today, you are no longer Pik boys. No, you've become more than that. You've grown. Today, you are Pik men. And we will not stop fighting until we bring justice to those who came before us. We will fight, and we will not stop fighting until we win or until our final breath is taken. So, who's ready to go in there and take down their emperor? Yeah, that's what I like to hear. Now, yellows, go over there, grab a bomb, and get into that thing's mouth! Yellows? Yellows? Ah, shit.
The plants revolted. Let's just beat it the normal way.
We arrive at the final trial. This last area is a straight path that requires you to utilize all three types of Pikmin to proceed. Once you complete the puzzle, all that stands between you and the final ship part is the final boss, the Emperor Bulblax, King of the Bulborbs.
This guy!
This boss is one of the most tedious and boring fights out of any game I've played. All you have to do to beat it is just get it to eat a bomb rock so that it becomes stunned. Once it's stunned, that's your opportunity to go in and attack. It gets back up, stomps around a while like an angry toddler, rinse and repeat. It's not a bad boss per se, it's just not engaging at all. Fighting it on the Wii version seemed to be a bit easier than back on the GameCube, whether that's because of the boss itself being made easier or me just getting better at the game, I don't know. What I do know is while it's less frustrating than before, it still wasn't that fun, which honestly blows. The game has had such unique and interesting enemies up until now. How did they mess it up here? An underwhelming end to an amazing game, I guess. Once the Emperor Bulblax is defeated, he drops our final ship part, Olimar's life savings?
Hand it over, Olimar. I gotta get my Mario Golf back.
Yeah, well, I guess Olimar might also deal with Earth back on his home planet, so I can completely understand why getting it back was so important. Especially, you know, going through a horrible boss fight to get it. But you know what? No, it's good. It's good. I hate Bulblax, dude. I hate him. So, our ship is complete and we can finally return home. A short cutscene begins to play of Olimar saying goodbye to the Pikmin after his long journey. As Olimar takes off, you can see the Pikmin fighting a Bulborb, showing us that Olimar taught the Pikmin to fend for themselves. As he flies away from the planet, multiple different colored onions fly after him to see him off. Some of these onions even have colors of Pikmin that weren't seen in this game, or in later games for that matter. As Olimar flies off, he takes one last look at the planet behind him before he leaves it forever. Forever. Right afterwards, the staff credits start playing, scrolling on top of the planet we just got done exploring. Then, at the very end of it all, we get a montage of all the creatures we encountered throughout the game, with some pretty nice music to top it off. That was the ending of Pikmin, or one of them at least. See, because of the type of game Pikmin is, it's extremely replayable. I've played through the game multiple times trying to get a better time by the end of each playthrough. That's why the developers implemented 3 different endings into the game. The good ending was the one that I just showed you, and only happens if you collect all 30 parts. The next ending is the okay ending. To get this one, you have to collect at least the 25 necessary ship parts, but not the full 30. In this ending, Olimar gets off the planet fine, but instead of saying goodbye to the Pikmin, he just kinda dips on them and leaves. Kind of a dick move, Olimar. Jesus. The final ending is the bad ending, and occurs when you fail to collect the necessary ship parts. Olimar will try to take off like usual, but mid-flight, his ship will stop working and crash back down to the planet's surface. In this ending, Olimar straight up f***ing dies, or comes close to it at least. Don't worry though, because the Pikmin are here to save the day. They carry Alamar back to an onion, just like they've been doing to enemies this whole game. They sent him up into it. He's then shot out and reincarnated as a Pikmin?
What the... What?
This is one of the weirdest endings to a game I can think of. Is it strange? Yes. Do I love it because it's strange? Also yes. It's a very Pikmin ending. Let's just leave it at that.
So that was Pikmin, Nintendo's strange but really fun take on an RTS style game. There were a few minor complaints, but the majority of the game is really solid even today. It's a fun game. Hey, you might even learn a thing or two about gardening. I know I've certainly learned a lot. Now if you excuse me, I have some community service gardening to go do, money to make, and GameCube games to get back. Man, that was some hard work. But hey, I got enough money to get my GameCube games back now. This is great. I mean... I'm getting a call. Hello?
You said you were going to make money from community service?
Yeah, what about it?
You don't earn any money from community service. It's voluntary.
Then where'd I get this money from?
I don't know. Where did you get that money from?
Oh, shit. That son of a bitch. Oh my god, the IRS won't get off my ass, dude.